She wanted an open marriage until I found someone better. When your wife says maybe we should see other people, it doesn't sound like a question. It sounds like a sentence. A quiet declaration that something has already shifted and you're the last one to know. She said it during dinner. Casually. Like she was asking if we should try a new restaurant or repaint the living room. Don't you think maybe we've become too predictable? She asked, sipping her wine and not meeting my eyes. I thought it was just a weird mood. Stress. A phase. But then she said it again. Slower this time. More deliberate. What if we open things up a little? Gave ourselves space to breathe. My fork paused in midair. You mean an open marriage? She shrugged like it was the most natural thing in the world. I've been reading about it. How it can actually save relationships. Bring couples closer. Closer? That was the part that got me. She wasn't looking to fix us. She was looking for permission. A hall pass. A way to step outside the lines without tearing up the contract. I didn't answer that night. I just listened. And somewhere between her rehearsed phrases and fake smiles, something inside me cracked and something else woke up. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I wasn't blind either. This wasn't about exploration. It was about justification. And I had a feeling she already had someone in mind. Over the next few days, she dropped more hints. Sent me articles. Podcasts. Told me how freeing it could be to separate love from possession. That we'd still be each other's home, just with adventures. I said yes. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just nodded and said, sure. If that's what you want. She looked surprised. Almost disappointed. Like she expected resistance. A fight. Maybe even an ultimatum she could blame me for. But I gave her none of that. And that's when the shift really started. Not between us, but in me. She made the first move, of course. Started going out more. Saying she was meeting friends from the gym. Wearing new perfume. Turning her phone face down when she got home. I played my part well, smiling, working, giving her space. I waited. But behind the scenes, I was making moves of my own. Quiet ones. Calculated. I updated my wardrobe. Hit the gym harder. Got back into hobbies I'd let go of, trying to keep her happy. I didn't go looking for anyone. I didn't have to. Confidence does its own advertising. 2 weeks into our experiment, I met someone. By accident. At a networking event. She was sharp, funny, and didn't speak in fake therapy language. She wasn't trying to redefine love. She just liked talking to me. Listening. Laughing. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. We started texting. Then lunch. Then a late-night conversation that turned into something more. I didn't feel guilty. How could I? My wife had made the rules. I was just following them. Funny how that works. She didn't notice at first. She was too busy with her own freedom. But I changed. My energy. My presence. The way I started looking past her instead of at her. And that's when she started to get nervous. I came home one night, smiling, jacket slung over my shoulder, and she was sitting on the couch waiting. You've been different lately, she said. Everything okay? I looked her in the eye and said, yeah. Everything's great. And for the first time. I meant it. When I said everything was great, I wasn't lying. But I also knew it was the kind of answer that kept her up that night. I could tell by the way she stared at the ceiling instead of turning her back to me like she usually did. The shift in the air was unmistakable. She had been so sure she'd be the one who thrived in our new arrangement. The one who explored, tasted, lived. She thought I'd sit on the sidelines, confused, hesitant, maybe even broken. But the truth was I had found peace in letting go of trying to control the narrative. And the moment I stopped chasing her approval, I became someone she didn't recognize anymore. The woman I had met, let's call her a dot, wasn't just a distraction. She was magnetic in the most effortless way. No games. No pretense. When she asked questions, she really listened. When she laughed, it wasn't polite or forced, it came from deep in her gut. We talked about everything and nothing. About how people lose themselves in long relationships. About what it means to rebuild from the ruins. She wasn't trying to fill a role. She didn't ask about my marriage. She didn't want drama. She just liked who I was, and that alone lit something inside me I hadn't felt in years. One night, and I stayed out late, walking the city after dinner. No expectations. No pressure. She asked me if I believed in second chances. I told her I didn't know. But what I did believe in was growth. In not repeating the same mistakes. She looked at me and said, "You're not who you were when this started, are you?" And she was right. I wasn't. Back at home, things were changing fast. My wife started noticing the difference. I wasn't cold, but I wasn't eager. I wasn't cruel, but I didn't chase. She began asking questions more often. Where were you tonight? Are you seeing someone? Do you still love me? I answered everything with calm honesty. I was out. Yes. And I'm figuring that out. That last one always got her. Because it wasn't a no, but it wasn't the desperate yes she expected either. Then came the first real crack in her mask. One morning she made breakfast. Not just a rushed cup of coffee, but the full routine, eggs, toast, the kind of thing she hadn't done in over a year. She smiled across the table and said, "Remember when we used to do this every Sunday?" I nodded. I remember doing it alone while you scrolled your phone. Her smile faltered. She didn't have a comeback for that. That weekend she canceled her usual plans. Stayed home. Dressed up a little too carefully. Kept trying to engage me in small talk, laughing too hard at old inside jokes. It felt less like love and more like nostalgia weaponized. She wasn't trying to fix things, she was trying to rewind. But I wasn't interested in going back. I got a message from A that night. Just 4 words, "Still up for tomorrow?" I replied instantly, "Absolutely." I didn't feel the need to hide it. My wife saw the message flash across the screen while we were watching a movie. She didn't say anything, but I saw the corner of her lip twitch. And that's when I knew the game had shifted completely. She had wanted an open marriage because she thought it gave her control. The freedom to explore, cheat without guilt, test boundaries without consequences. But what she didn't expect was that I'd step out into the same open world and find something better. Something real. Something that didn't ask for permission. And the moment she realized I was no longer looking at her as the center of my world, that's when it hit her. Late that night, she crawled into bed and whispered, "Do you think we should close the marriage again? Just focus on us?" I looked at her. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with the same calm clarity I had built piece by piece since the day she first brought this up. We could have focused on us when we had something worth saving. Yeah? I'm not so sure it's about us anymore. She didn't respond. Just turned away silent. But I knew she felt it. That uneasy fear. Not of losing me, but of being the one left behind in the very game she started. The morning after she asked to close the marriage again, things were quieter. Not peaceful, not resolved, just quiet in the way a storm cell builds just outside your window. You know something's coming, but all you can do is wait and watch. She moved slower that day, like someone carefully stepping through a house full of broken glass, hoping not to trigger anything sharp. But she didn't apologize. She didn't admit she'd gone too far. She just pretended in that very specific way people do when they're trying to rewind without owning what they broke. I went about my day as usual. Worked out early. Met with my team. Grabbed lunch with A, who was becoming a constant in my life without demanding it. She didn't pressure, didn't ask where things stood with my wife. She just existed in her own light, and the contrast between her and what I'd left behind at home was becoming harder and harder to ignore. A wasn't perfect, but she was honest. She never fed me half-truths wrapped in self-discovery language. She didn't treat love like a debate topic or loyalty like an outdated tradition. She just showed up. Real, grounded, and emotionally present. Meanwhile, my wife's energy was shifting rapidly. She became unusually attentive, like she was trying to rebrand herself. Compliments out of nowhere. Spontaneous plans. Cooking dinners she hadn't made in years. And for someone who once mocked relationship rituals, she suddenly seemed very interested in recreating all of ours. The problem was you can't rebuild trust on top of performance. You can't tape smiles over betrayal and expect it to hold. Every time she leaned in, I leaned back. Not out of spite, but because I had outgrown the version of myself that used to beg for crumbs. She started asking more pointed questions. Is she younger? Is it serious? Do you think about her when you're with me? I didn't lie. She listens to me, I said once, which was enough to send her into silence for the rest of the night. But it wasn't just that A listened. It was that she saw me. And when someone sees you clearly after years of being invisible in your own home, it changes you in ways you can't unfeel. Then came the turning point. We were invited to a mutual friend's birthday party, a small gathering with people who knew us as a couple, the kind that asked about vacations and house projects and smiled too tightly when the answers were vague. My wife wanted to go, maybe to signal that everything was fine. Maybe to reclaim something. I agreed, knowing full well I'd be walking in as someone she no longer recognized. We arrived together, but not really. I held the door open but didn't reach for her hand. I greeted friends but didn't seek her eyes across the room. She tried to laugh loudly, to talk over me in stories, to interrupt with memories that no longer mattered. At one point, she leaned in and whispered, "They're all watching. At least act like you're still in this." I turned to her slowly and said, "Maybe they should know we're not." That froze her. Later that evening, I stepped outside to take a call. A Checking in, just a simple, how's your night, and let me know when you're free. No jealousy. No pressure. Just care. When I hung up and turned around, my wife was standing a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes full of something between fear and fury. You really don't feel anything for me anymore, do you? I didn't answer right away, because the truth deserved the weight of silence. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. I feel something. I feel sad for the version of you I used to love. I feel sorry for the man I used to be, how hard he tried to hold this together while you were already letting go. Her face twisted, but she didn't cry. She was too proud for that. Instead, she said something that confirmed what I had always suspected. I never thought you'd actually go through with it. I thought you'd play along for a while, then beg to stop. I thought I'd have the upper hand. And there it was. The truth unwrapped and exposed. This was never about growth or love or freedom. It was about control. About testing my limits. Seeing how far she could push before I break. But I didn't break. I transformed. And now the control she once clutched so tightly was slipping right through her fingers. After that night at the party, there was no pretending left. The air between us wasn't just tense, it was final. She stopped trying to fix things, or more accurately, stopped trying to perform like she was fixing things. There were no more carefully cooked dinners or soft-voiced apologies. The silence became louder, stretched between rooms, clinging to the walls of our home like dust on forgotten furniture. We still lived under the same roof, but in different emotional time zones. She was stuck in damage control, clinging to a fantasy version of what we were. I had already left mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What remained was a ghost of a marriage, one she had asked to open and now didn't know how to close. Meanwhile, everything outside those walls was accelerating. My time with A was becoming something more than just late-night texts and quiet conversations. She became my peace, my anchor. There were no games, no manipulation, just an understanding that we were building something slow, steady, and genuine. And while my wife clung to a decaying past, I was busy laying the foundation for a future she had no place in anymore. I remember one night in particular. I got home late after a long dinner with A, where we had talked about childhood stories, about fear, about what we thought love should feel like. Real things. Vulnerable things. When I stepped inside the house, it was dark except for the soft glow of the kitchen light. She was there, my wife, sitting at the table with an untouched glass of wine in front of her. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. She just looked up and said, "You used to text me when you were out late." I stared at her for a moment. "You used to care when I came home." That shut her down. Not in a dramatic way, but in a hollow, echoing one. The kind that doesn't leave room for another line. And that was the theme for the next few weeks, her trying to reach into something that no longer existed and me walking further away every time she did. She tried once more to bring it back. Sat me down and said we should reevaluate the terms. Said we could slow things down, maybe even reset completely. But there's no reset button once you've burned the blueprint. I looked her in the eye and asked, "What exactly do you want from me now? Loyalty? When you were the one who opened the door and walked out first? Intimacy? When you handed it to strangers and called it freedom? Or do you just hate that I was the one who ended up happier?" She didn't answer. Because she knew. She had mistaken my agreement as weakness. She thought by controlling the terms of our unraveling she'd never actually lose me. That I'd orbit her forever, emotionally available, just close enough to miss what we had. But she forgot one simple truth: a man who learns to be whole alone is no longer afraid of letting go. The final straw came in the form of a casual message from a mutual friend. Someone we both respected. They'd seen me out with A and texted, "Didn't think you'd move on so fast, but honestly, you seem happier than I've ever seen you." My wife saw the message light up on my screen and didn't even ask who it was. She just stood there, took a deep breath, and whispered, "So that's it then?" I turned to her. Calm. Unshaken. "No. That was at the moment you asked for the freedom to leave. I just finally took it." She moved out 2 days later. Packed quietly, no scene. No goodbye hug. Just silence and a final look that carried everything she couldn't say. Maybe she thought I'd stop her. That I'd beg her to stay. But I'd already said goodbye months ago, back when she looked me in the eye and redefined betrayal as evolution. I didn't just survive our open marriage. I outgrew it. I became the version of myself I was too scared to be when I was trying to hold onto her. Stronger. Clearer. More focused. I realized that the people who love you conditionally only when it suits their needs, their whims, their versions of progress, those people don't deserve the kind of loyalty I used to give so freely. N.A. She never asked for more than I could give. She never compared. She just existed with me in the present, and for once, that was enough. The worst part of betrayal isn't what they do to you. It's what they take from you while smiling, your time, your trust, your quiet belief that you're safe. But the best part of healing? It's realizing they were never your safety to begin with. You were. You always were. I didn't realize how heavy everything had been until it was finally gone. The tension. The quiet wars behind fake smiles. The constant need to read between the lines. After she moved out, it was like the house took a breath for the first time in years. The silence wasn't cold anymore, it was peaceful. Clean. I could finally hear my own thoughts without second-guessing them. I didn't walk on eggshells. I didn't check my tone. I wasn't trying to save something that had already drowned. The days that followed were strange, not because I missed her, but because I didn't. I thought maybe I would. I thought maybe the absence of chaos would feel like emptiness. But it didn't. It felt like freedom. The kind you don't recognize right away because you've lived too long thinking you're only valuable when you're struggling to keep someone else's love alive. That's the most dangerous part of a toxic relationship. You start believing that suffering equals depth. That heartbreak means passion. That sacrifice is love. But it's not. Love isn't what breaks you and demands applause. It's what builds you up so you can finally exhale. And I kept growing closer, but I didn't rush into anything. I didn't want to repeat mistakes. We took our time. We asked real questions. Hard ones. About fears. Boundaries. Past wounds. She wasn't scared of my history. She didn't flinch when I told her the truth. She just nodded and said, as long as you're not still living in it. And I wasn't. Because the chapter with my ex wasn't just over, it was burned. And from the ashes, I had built something better. Word eventually got around. Friends, mutual acquaintances, even some who had always believed in my wife's version of events, how she just wanted to grow, how I wasn't emotionally available, how she needed to explore herself. They started seeing the cracks in her story. And they started seeing something else too, me whole. Thriving. Happy. And not in that forced, performative way people pretend on social media. No. This was real. The kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. And then came the text. Out of nowhere. Late one night. From her. No, hi. No, how are you? Just a line that said, do you ever think about what we could have been if I'd handled things differently? I stared at the screen for a long minute. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally had nothing left to say. I didn't need closure. I didn't need to hurt her. I didn't even need to be kind. So I didn't reply. I just let her message sit there, unanswered, a final echo of a voice I no longer listened to. I closed my phone, leaned back, and exhaled. That was it. The last thread. I had become the man she never expected I could be. The man she only realized she wanted after she pushed me to become someone else's dream. That's the cost of treating love like a negotiation. You don't get to be shocked when the other party walks away with a better deal. But I didn't win because I made her jealous. I didn't win because I replaced her. I won because I stopped defining my worth by someone who needed to leave me to see it. You know what the real revenge is? It's not bitterness. It's not rebound relationships or dramatic speeches. It's growth. Quiet, consistent, undeniable growth. It's walking into a room and no longer carrying the weight of who you had to be just to keep someone from walking away. It's building a life where the people around you don't ask you to shrink, apologize, or beg. They just see you. And choose you. Every day. If you've ever been in a relationship where your love was used against you, where your loyalty was twisted into a leash, hear this, you're not too much. You're not hard to love. You're not impossible. You were just loving someone who needed you small to feel big. Don't go back to that. Build something better. Live like the version of yourself they never believed could exist. And when they look back one day and they will let them see nothing but your back, walking away into a future they were never brave enough to build with you. If this story hit you deep, share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful real-life stories of love, loss, and unapologetic growth. There's more coming. Stories that remind you that your next chapter doesn't need their permission.